Well, I am a sushi chef. That has been my profession for at least 14 years of my life. I am approaching 30 years of age, so I started when I was around 14. Had no choice, so yeah, I was kind of just thrown in there.
And like, how did you start that? Were you started out in the kitchen, or did you go through formal training?
Yeah, so my family, if anyone is familiar with the Santa Cruz area, that's where I was born and raised. My family own and operate Shogun, Japanese restaurant in downtown Santa Cruz, and I was living with my parents, and my dad's like, hey, you need a job. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. He's like, hey, you're going to work for me. I'm like, oh, okay, sounds great. And ever since then, yeah, I've just been a sushi chef.
So has your family been in sushi for the entirety of the business?
No, my father was an optician, and then he decided to leave that, become a sushi chef, and then we've had the restaurant for at least 20 plus years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So like.
So I.
Oh no! Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, my aunt and uncle worked there as well, and my cousin and my mom used to work there. So literally, my whole family works at that restaurant. Yeah.
So I love sushi just as a consumer, but I have no idea the education that you have to go through to actually prepare fish. I would imagine it's pretty technical and difficult.
It is.
What was that process for you?
For me, like, starting off, I didn't even start touching fish for at least 4 months of my sushi career, because my dad, all he made me do was put rice on nori and try to make sure the amount of rice on the seaweed was perfect. And if I didn't do it right, he would literally throw it at me, be like, yo, do this all over again. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, Dad. And there have been nights where I was crying behind the bar in front of customers, man. I am not going to forget those nights at all. I am very grateful, and I'm very humble about those experiences, but God, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
So this all started at 14, you said?
Yeah. 14, like,
wow.
I wasn't even getting paid. I wasn't getting tips. I wasn't getting nothing. My dad's like, why do you need money? I'm like, I'm working. He's like, oh, well, you're living under my house. You don't need anything. If you need money, just ask me. I'm like, okay, sounds good. No.
So when did you actually start to touch the fish and start actually preparing sushi?
I want to say that was maybe when I was 17, 18. Because, like, my dad would already have the fish cut for me, so I wouldn't ruin anything, you know? He would be like, hey, these are all the fish that I portioned out. If you need more fish, just ask me. I'll cut more fish. So I was just more perfecting the shape of the roll, the amount of rice that goes on a roll, presentation at that restaurant. Every restaurant's different when it comes to presentation, but at my family's restaurant, I had to make sure everything was dialed, the amount of sauce, all of it. Yeah. So that was chaos.
So you're like literally 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I didn't touch a single fish for like 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Do you know if is that typical? Like, I have no idea.
Japanese wise, in like Japanese culture, bro, you wouldn't be touching fish for at least 5, I think. Because like for me, it was a long time, and I'm Korean. Just a disclaimer, I'm Korean. So it's just like, yeah, my parents didn't let me touch fish for a long time. So in Japan, I guarantee it's longer. I want to say the longest I've heard someone not touching fish was 5 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So they're just messing with seaweed and rice? That,
and see if you can handle it. A lot of people can't handle like the pressure of like because like it's all about speed and efficiency. Like, you got to be both, and if you can't do one or the other, then you're not going to make it as a sushi chef. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. If you can't handle the pressure from a customer or like the craziness behind the sushi bar, I think this goes for every restaurant. Like, you can't make it, then you got to go. There's like a lot of mental stress that you have to go through in order to be a chef. Like, it's crazy. Mm-hmm.
And then when did you actually start? So I watched a couple of your videos where you're actually like breaking down the whole fish into fillets. And like that just looks like foreign to me. Like, when did you start that process?
That process, I want to say I started back in 2016, 2015. So yeah, I want to say it was about 9 years I actually started to cut the fish. Like I mean, I learned from other people, but actually doing it on my own was like 5 years ago, if not 6 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Like, confidently and all that stuff. Yeah.
So do they just like show you right next?
Pretty much.
Do they have the same piece of fish right next to you?
Yeah. So I'm just shadowing and I'm just learning just by seeing the angle, like how the chef holds the knife, like where to cut exactly, how far away from So are you familiar with hamachi kama? Have you ever had that?
Yep.
So I had to like learn exactly where to place the knife, how to cut out the collar, it's like perfectly and all that. So for years I just kept watching and watching until my dad's like, all right, I feel comfortable you doing it on your own. I'm like, cool. That was a big mark in my life, honestly. It was like, Dad, you let me cut the fish. Like, holy crap, this is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, hamachi kama is the collar, right?
Yes,
Of a fish.
Yeah, the yellowtail tuna.
Is there a fish that's more difficult, or is there like a difficulty level with filleting a fish and between the variety of fish?
I want to say the most intense fish to cut would be toro, like tuna, because toro is like the crown jewel when it comes to the fattiness of tunas. There's like otoro, which are the super fatty tuna, chutoro, which is the medium fatty tuna, and akami, which is pretty much every single tuna you get at a restaurant, just normal maguro. But yeah, man, otoro is seriously the crown. It's like $18 for just 2 pieces. You know what I mean? Like, it's just insane.
Yeah.
So you got to be ready when you cut that. So yeah, that was by far the most intense fish to cut for sure.
Dude, all those names you just dropped, I'm like, oh, I know these because of his TikTok.
Hey.
I watched that video where you're naming out the pieces.
Hey man, that's what I'm on there for. You know, I'm trying to teach, like, try to demystify the whole culture behind sushi. You know, people think you have to be like this high level chef. It's like, no, like anyone could be a sushi chef. You just gotta be willing to go through the mental stress behind it. It is all mental.
Yeah,
literally all mental.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a couple of those omakase places, and it's just like I don't know the technical differences. I don't know the minute details. But like the finished product, you can tell, like, damn, this person really knows what they're doing when they're preparing this, like, this dish.
Omakaze, like, the atmosphere inside of those kind of restaurants is pretty intense because these guys are like, yo, we know what we're doing. Do not tell us what we're doing is wrong because, like, we will. No, it just doesn't fly like that. You know, it's like, we know what we're doing. Shut up and enjoy your food. That's pretty much how it is in omakase restaurants.
How do you feel about that though?
I mean, they deserve it. That's their place. Like, you're going in there for an experience that they're going to provide you. Like, you can't go in there expecting what you want. It's like, no, they got their fish of the day. You're going to sit there and enjoy it. You know, so yeah, I love it. Honestly, I love that style stuff. It's like, yep, cater to me, please. I am not here to judge. Let me eat.
I actually used to be a relatively picky eater, not like super picky, but I was not super adventurous into seafood. And when I first went to an omakase place, I had been informed, like, yo, this is like the top level chefs with the top level meats or fish, and you cannot add, you cannot subtract, you cannot substitute. There's none of that.
Exactly.
Like, not even with the sake. You do the sake pairing. They're like, no, you can't even substitute the sake. So I was like actually really nervous to go in on the first, because you're dropping like some pretty serious money to go eat it at one of these places. A couple $100 a person.
Oh yeah, easily.
And yeah. And some of these places in Japan are like thousands of dollars a person, but just being forced and understanding, like, this is how it is when you walk in, I actually enjoyed every single dish that I've ever received in an omakase experience. I've actually really experienced it or enjoyed it. And it's made me more adventurous in other kind of culinary aspects of my life where I'm like, nah, that looks weird. I'm not going to try it. But omakase really kind of just like unlocked that piece of my culinary experience for me.
Yeah, no, that's probably the greatest thing about omakase is, like, when people actually sit down and like experience that level of like quality fish, they really just opens their minds, like, oh my goodness, I didn't know sushi could be this like extravagant, you know?
Yeah, it's like going to a really nice steakhouse who use like A5 Wagyu type stuff. Again, this is out of ignorance. What's the difference between like some dude who has maybe been preparing sushi, like the whole menu for, let's say, like 5 years versus like the master who's like been doing it for like 50 years? Like, what's the difference? Like the technical difference or like anything? I think around that.
It's just how the chef carries himself. You know what I mean? Like, I could tell a really established chef is not one to be all like chest up, like super cocky, you know what I mean? Whereas like a serious chef knows what he's doing. He's just gonna be mellow. It's like, okay, he's gonna be quiet, you know, like not really like, vocal. He's going, like, he's more visual. You know what I mean? I can just tell by like how they look at you and all that from a dignified chef compared to like it's like me. You know what I mean? Like, I've been making sushi for 14 plus years, 15 plus years of my life, but I am nowhere near the level of like Jiro. Have you seen that sushi documentary? Jiro, Sushi of Dreams.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, for me personally, to get to Jiro's levels, another 20 years of sushi, another like 30 years, if not, because like he's perfected it. Like, you know what I mean? He is a 3-star Michelin established chef. I am the dream. Like, that is such a dream for me to be at that level of just like discipline. And yeah, it's nuts, man. It's absolutely nuts.
So how do you get from here to there? Is it like, because it can't be go in and cruise like, oh, I did this yesterday, so let's do it again today. No, it has to be like incremental improvement, right?
Because like fish isn't consistently the same quality. Like, you have to like adapt to certain things. So like, let's say you have fish that I'm just talking about like omakaze style restaurants. You know what I mean? Not like the fusion style restaurant that I work at. It's like you have to adapt to like, okay, we can't use tuna because the tuna today at the fish markets is really bad and the vendor can't find us good tuna. We have to resort to getting, okay, maybe we should switch the menu to a Spanish mackerel or do a different type of, you know what I mean? There's so much stress already behind the process of that, but at the same time, to come up with a menu that day, just basing off the fish that's at the market, is just so incredible to me. And like how to find the sake to go with the fish, how to, like the appetizers with that. It's just incredible, and like I would love to get to that level one day and like learn to be that.
So is that repetition and experience? Like, oh, I recognize this fish because I made it, 20 times last year, or I've made it 100 times the last 10 years.
Right.
Or is it like technical stuff?
I want to say it's more technical because you got to look at the color of the fish. You got to like feel the texture of the fish, and it's all taste too. Like, you develop your palate throughout the years too. So like, I'm not saying I know the best otoro once I see it at a restaurant, you know what I mean? Like, I'll have it. I mean, I know otoro well enough to be like, all right, if it melts instantly the moment it touches my tongue, this is quality, like fatty tuna. Whereas like I have to chew on it, I'm like, okay, this is like 2 days. It could have been eaten 2 days earlier and been a lot better, you know what I mean? So that's just that's what I think I'm at, but I don't know. I try to keep myself humble. I don't want to be like a cocky chef, you know what I mean? So I'm like just trying to be